Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling something huge happening in India's employment world. A whole tangled web of old, complicated laws has just been replaced by one single new rulebook designed for the modern workplace.
So India basically just rewrote over 24 of its main labor laws. I mean, some of these were almost 100 years old. But what does that massive shift actually mean for you, for your job, your paycheck, your rights? That's what we're going to dig in.
Okay, so at the very center of all this are what's called the 4 labor codes. And the big idea here was pretty simple, really. Take this notoriously complicated mess of old laws and just streamline it. Make it modern, make it something that both companies and workers can actually understand and use. So, here's what we're covering. First, we'll look at how they've put these 4 codes into one system. Then we'll dive into what it means for safer work and fairer hours. After that, your pay and protections. Then the new rules for disputes. And finally, we'll look at the road ahead.
All right, let's jump right in. Section 1. 4 codes, one system. This is all about moving from that super complex web to a much cleaner framework. You really can't overstate how big this change is. The old system was, well, it was a jungle, a tangle of more than 29 different central laws. It was a headache for employers to follow and, honestly, pretty confusing for employees. Now, the new reality is much, much simpler. Just 4 streamlined codes. One for wages, one for Social Security, one for industrial relations, and one for occupational safety and health, which you'll hear called OSH.
Okay, that's the big picture. But how does this actually change your day-to-day at work? Let's get into Section 2, Safer Work, Fairer Hours. This is about the real, tangible stuff.
The OHS code puts a bunch of new responsibilities squarely on employers, and it's all about 2 key things: making jobs more formal and putting safety first. So now, things like getting an official appointment letter, getting free annual health exams for certain jobs, and having safety committees in bigger companies, these are becoming the new standard. There are even rules about appointing dedicated safety officers in some industries and reporting serious accidents fast.
The code also nails down what a standard workweek looks like. It's pretty straightforward: an 8-hour daily limit and a 48-hour weekly limit. Now, some states might get flexible with how those hours are arranged, maybe 4 longer days, but this 8 and 48, that's the new baseline.
So what about taking a vacation? How do you earn that paid time off? The OSHA code sets a single clear rule for this. You need to have worked at least 180 days in a year to be eligible for that annual leave with pay.
That's the magic number.
All right. This leads to a really important question that a lot of people have been asking. Can women work night shifts now?
And the answer is yes. But, and this is a big but, it comes with some really important strings attached. First, the woman has to give her consent. She has to agree to it. And second, the employer is now on the hook to provide a safe environment, make sure she gets her holidays, and that her working hours are respected. Consent and safety are absolutely key here.
Okay, let's talk money. Section 3 is all about your pay and protections. We're going to look at what's changing with your salary and your Social Security, and trust me, some of the biggest changes are right here. Now, this might sound a little technical, but it's a huge deal. The new codes create a standard definition of wages. Basically, your wages are now your basic pay, plus your dearness allowance, and any retaining allowance. Why does this matter so much? Because things like your Social Security contributions are calculated based on this number. So a clearer, potentially higher base could mean more money going into your long-term savings. And this next part, this is genuinely groundbreaking. For the very first time, India is officially stretching its Social Security net way beyond traditional office jobs. It's now going to cover a whole new and rapidly growing part of the workforce.
We're talking about gig workers and platform workers. For them, this is a total game changer. The government can now set up Social Security for them, things like life and disability cover, health benefits, maternity benefits, even old age protection. And how is it funded? Mostly through contributions from the aggregators themselves. Think of your ride-sharing or food delivery apps. It creates a safety net that, for these workers, just wasn't there before.
The new codes also tweak some of the existing rules. Take gratuity, for example. That's the bonus you get for long service. For most people, you still need to work for 5 straight years to get it. But the codes now make a specific exception for working journalists. They only need 3 years of service. So, what happens when there's a disagreement at work? A dispute? Well, that brings us to Section 4, New Rules for Disputes. Let's look at the new playbook for these situations.
The new Industrial Relations Code lays out a very clear step-by-step process. First, as a worker, you file your issue with a grievance redress committee, and they have a deadline. They have to sort through it within 30 days. If it's still not resolved, you can then take your case to the Industrial Tribunal. The whole point is to make the process faster and more predictable.
And it's not just for grievances. The new rules also create clear timelines for employers when they want to make big changes. For instance, if a company wants to shut down, they have to give 90 days notice. If they're letting a worker go, it's a 1-month notice. These set time frames just bring a lot more clarity and predictability for everyone involved.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. With all these new rules, what does the future of work in India actually look like? Let's get into our final section, the road ahead.
So let's boil it all down. What are the key takeaways? For workers, it means clearer rights when it comes to safety, hours, and pay. And of course, that brand new Social Security net for gig workers. For employers, it's about simpler compliance, fewer laws to juggle, and clearer duties. And for both sides, a much more structured way to solve problems when they come up.
There's also a really interesting forward-looking piece in these codes, the Worker Reskilling Fund. Here's how it works. If a worker is let go, their employer has to contribute an amount equal to 15 days of their wages into this fund. Then, that money gets transferred directly to the worker within 45 days. The idea is to give them a little cushion to help them learn new skills for their next job.
And you know, if you want to understand the spirit behind all of this, there's a great quote right from the Industrial Relations Code itself. It says the Works Committee has a duty to promote measures for securing and preserving amity and good relations between the employer and workers. It's really about trying to build a more cooperative and positive workplace. So, the new rule book is here. Decades of complicated laws have been boiled down into one modern framework. But that leaves us with the big final question, doesn't it? Will all of this actually work? Will it really create a future of work for India that's more secure, more simple, and more dynamic? I guess only time will tell.